Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about what it was really like to be a girl whose main value in the eyes of her family and society was not her talents, personality, or dreams, but her virginity, carefully guarded and treated as the family's most important capital. Together, we'll follow a typical day in the life of a medieval hired virgin, from waking up cold in a cramped, damp hut to collapsing into exhaustion at night, where the only comfort is the hope of waking up again tomorrow. But before you get comfortable, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I'm always curious to see who's joining us. Now settle in and get cozy. We're about to begin. You wake up, as usual, not so much rising from slumber as clawing your way out of it, the cold pressing against your back like a hand that never lets go. There is no such thing as a bed in the sense future centuries will romanticize. You sleep on a pile of straw that has long since resigned itself to the fact that it will never be fresh or fragrant again. The blanket, if one could flatter it so, is a rough, scratchy cloth layered with the smells and stains of years, maybe decades, of use. It is at best a thin barrier between you and the world, and at worst, just another thing to wash and mend, though you know you will never truly get it clean. You wake not because the sun has risen. Most days, you do not see the sun until hours after you have begun your chores, but because the draft that always sneaks in under the door has grown bolder, licking at your ankles and warning you that another day in the world has begun. You shiver. You wonder, in the back of your mind, if your toes will turn black and fall off this winter, or next, or the one after that. You have heard stories of people who lost fingers or feet to the cold, but never anyone who managed to avoid it altogether. The frost is the silent thief who lives with you, and you know he will collect his due eventually. You lie there for a moment longer, because standing up will only confirm that you have not, in fact, died peacefully in your sleep. There are days when you almost hope you have, but life in your little cottage, if that is what you can call this collection of timber, mud, and misery, waits for no one. Your family will soon rouse themselves, shuffling in the gloom and grumbling about chores. You are always the first awake, because you are always the last to go to sleep, and someone must see to the morning tasks. You reach for your clothes, which you folded and tucked under your makeshift pillow the night before, not for neatness, but because the only warmth to be found is from your own body heat, and even that is a fleeting gift. The dress, if you are generous, is a faded garment that has survived more than one generation and will probably be repurposed into rags or used to line a coffin someday. You cannot remember when it was new. Perhaps you never saw it as anything but what it is now, threadbare, patched, and heavy with the scent of wood smoke, earth, and desperation. Pulling on your clothes is an act of will. The cloth is stiff, and you are stiff too, from sleeping curled up and trying to stay warm through the night. Your hair is a tangled mess, but you do not own a comb, and your fingers will do as they always have. They untangle what they can, and the rest is left to fate. There is no mirror in the house, and even if there was, what would you see? Your face is just another tool for survival, not something to be fussed over. As you stand, you hear the muffled sounds of life in the rest of the house. Someone coughs, always the same cough, wet and ragged, that has haunted your home for months. You try not to think about it. You try not to think about a lot of things. Your job is to survive, not to dream. You step over your youngest sibling, who has rolled off the sleeping mat again, and gently nudge her back into the warmth of the pile. She stirs but does not wake. You envy her that, the innocence of sleep, untroubled by the knowledge of what the day will bring. You were like that once, before you were old enough to be useful. You move quietly to the door, pushing it open with the heel of your hand. The hinges creak, protesting against the cold. Outside, the air is even colder, biting at your cheeks and stealing your breath. The village is quiet, wrapped in a fog that will soon burn away, but for now, hides the dirt and ruin of everything around you. The rooster has not crowed yet. You are, as always, ahead of the world. You cross the yard to the woodpile. Your father insists the fire must be lit before he wakes, and so you fumble with half frozen fingers to collect what little dry wood you can find. Your hands are numb, and you know you will get splinters, but this is your life. You light the fire with the skill of long practice, coaxing the reluctant flame into life, feeding it little by little. The warmth, when it comes, is barely enough to take the edge off the cold, but it is better than nothing. Better than most things, really. You move back inside, where the dim light and flicker of the fire begin to wake the rest of the family. You will cook the morning porridge soon, such as it is, and portion out the last of the stale bread. Your mother will scold you for something. She always finds something, but you are used to it by now. You will sweep the floor, feed the chickens, and begin the endless list of chores that make up your existence. You do not ask for more. You do not even imagine more. This is your life, a cycle of cold, hunger, and duty, repeated every day without end. And so you begin again, as you always do, because there is no other way. Water. You would think, living in a village with a river barely a stone's throw away, that water would be everywhere. But you know better. Water in the medieval world is not your friend, not the cheerful companion that future generations will pour from brass taps, hot and cold on command, without so much as a thought. No, water is a daily adversary, a test of endurance, a source of endless toil and occasional terror. Your first real task of the day, after stirring the fire and praying it does not go out, is to fetch water. It is always you. Your mother claims her back aches. Your brothers are, of course, too young, though you notice they are not too young for anything they want to do. So you tie your dress tighter at the waist, wrap your thin shawl over your shoulders, and reach for the bucket, an object so battered that it seems to be held together by the memory of wood more than the wood itself. You step outside again, bracing yourself. The well is 30 paces from your door, but the way there is treacherous. Mud, sharp stones, and the occasional chicken that eyes you with a mix of suspicion and hope. You nod at the chicken, which does not nod back. Why would it? Chickens have their own problems, and so do you. The well, when you reach it, looks ancient. You suspect it might actually be older than your grandfather, who already seems as old as the hills. The rope is frayed. The bucket's handle is slick from years of hands clutching it, desperate for a full measure of water. There is no line because everyone in the village knows when to come, and they know to avoid the early morning cold unless they must. You must. You lower the bucket, listening to the echo of wood against stone as it descends. You have done this every day for as long as you can remember. The first time, you almost dropped the rope, and your mother beat you for wasting time and risking the bucket. Now, your hands know the weight, the feel, the right moment to jerk the rope and fill the bucket without losing it. You wait, and the rope tenses. You haul it up, hand over hand, feeling the water slosh inside. It is heavy, almost too heavy, but you do not let yourself think about how tired you are already before the sun has even finished rising. When you bring the bucket to your face, the water is not clear. It has a faint green tint, the gift of algae, and there are always things floating in it. Bits of leaf, a beetle, sometimes something worse. You have long since learned not to look too closely. You cannot afford to be squeamish. You take a cup, rinse it in the grass, and sip a mouthful of water. It tastes of iron and earth, and sometimes, on bad days, it tastes like something dead upstream. Still, you drink. You do not have a choice. Carrying the full bucket back is harder. Water is heavy, and you are not tall or strong. If you spill it, you will have to return. Your mother will shout. Your father might do worse. So you shuffle, step by careful step, back toward the cottage, arms burning, shoulders aching. You imagine, briefly, what it would be like to be a lady, a real one in silk and velvet, with servants to fetch your water and heat it in a copper tub to wash away the filth of the world. You almost laugh. No lady would last a day in your shoes. Her feet would blister and bleed by noon. Inside, you pour the water into the clay jar set by the hearth. It is not enough. It is never enough. There are mouths to drink, pots to fill, bread to bake, hands to wash, though washing is a relative term, and most days, the best you can hope for is to scrub your face and hands and leave the rest for another day. Water must be rationed, measured like silver. Baths happen rarely, if ever, and you can count on one hand the number of times you have been truly clean. Even on those days, you were cold before you dried, and the dirt found you again before sunset. You glance at the bottom of the bucket. Sometimes there is grit, a pebble, a worm. You fish them out with practiced fingers, wipe your hand on your skirt, and think nothing of it. In stories, water is pure and life giving. Here, it is only one more thing to wrestle with. Your siblings wake and come yawning to the fire. They jostle for the water cup, and you have to swat their hands. There must be enough left for cooking. Your mother scolds you for letting the water get low, as if you do it for fun. You do not reply, because there is no point. You pour the water into the pot, set it over the fire, and listen to the faint hiss as cold meets heat. Later, you will have to fetch more. The cycle never ends. In winter, when the well freezes, you chip ice until your fingers bleed. In summer, the water grows slimy and people fall sick. You have seen what happens when the river floods and the village wells turn foul. Coughing, vomiting, and sometimes a small grave behind the church, a mother or child whose luck ran out. You wash your face as best you can with water that chills you to the bone. No one notices, no one cares. This is your life. You carry water, you use water, and you endure water. You do not waste it, not a drop. You are not sure if you respect water or hate it. Perhaps it is both. Either way, you cannot escape it. You sigh, shoulders hunched, and move on to your next task. Bucket empty, hands raw, and another long day stretching ahead of you. This, you remind yourself, is what it means to survive. You will not read about medieval hygiene in the illuminated manuscripts that priests thumb through in the dim light of the church. But if you live it as you do, it is impossible to ignore. Hygiene in your world is less a matter of ritual or pride than it is a grim, unavoidable necessity, one you address as little as possible and as quickly as you can. Here, the idea of being clean is as much fantasy as owning a golden crown. Your day begins and ends surrounded by dirt. It is in the straw that you sleep on, the floorboards that creak beneath your feet, the food you eat, the air you breathe. You carry it on your skin like an extra layer of clothing. And so, when you wake and prepare yourself for another day, your first challenge is to make yourself as presentable as survival will allow. The morning air is cold and biting, but that does not matter. You must wash your face. There is no soap in your house. Soap is for the very rich, or for the sick, or for the one time a year your mother gets hold of a gray, misshapen lump from the traveling peddler. You remember its sharp smell, how it burned in your nose and left your skin raw. The rest of the year you make do with ash, grit, or sand, anything that promises the illusion of cleanliness. You scoop water from the bucket, the surface filmed with whatever the wind and rafters delivered overnight. It is cold, always cold, and you splash it on your cheeks, rubbing the sleep and grease away with the side of your palm. Your hands are already cracked from cold and work. If you are lucky, the water makes the dirt less obvious, but it never truly removes it. You look at your fingernails, always blackened, no matter how much you scrape, and know that in your world, this is simply how hands look. You do not own a towel, not even an old one. Instead, you dry your face with the edge of your sleeve, leaving a wet spot that will never fully dry in the dank morning chill. Your hair, tangled and wild, is pulled back with a strip of cloth. Combs, like soap, are for the wealthy. Your mother will sometimes pick through your hair with her fingers, especially if you scratch too often. Everyone in the house has lice. It is simply a fact of life, like hunger and cold. You pretend not to notice, and so does everyone else. Washing the rest of your body is a luxury you cannot afford. Baths require time, water, and fuel for heating, none of which you have in abundance. The last time you bathed, truly bathed, not just dabbing at your face and arms with a rag, was when you were ill with fever and your mother feared the priest might come to deliver your last rites. That bath was not a kindness, but a desperate attempt to wash away whatever evil had taken hold of you. You survived. The bath, you suspect, did nothing. Clothes are another matter entirely. You have one dress, maybe two if you are lucky or clever with a needle. You wear it every day, layering it in winter with rags or, if fortune smiles, an old cloak handed down from your grandmother's time. The dress is stained and patched, the fabric grown thin where it rubs against your knees and elbows. Each stain tells a story: the grease from yesterday's cooking, the blood from a scraped shin, the green brown from last week's failed attempt to wash it in the river. Washing clothes is a day-long affair and done rarely, when the stench becomes too much even for you, or when a festival approaches and you must present yourself to the world as less than entirely wretched. You drag your dress to the river, scrubbing it against stones with handfuls of sand or ashes. Your knuckles bleed, the water numbs your hands, and the dress never really dries before you must wear it again. You wonder sometimes how you would look in something new, something soft and whole, but such thoughts are a waste of time. In this world, clothes are not for beauty, they are for modesty and survival. Toilets do not exist here, not in any form you would recognize. The family shares a wooden privy at the far edge of the yard, just a hole in a plank, surrounded by buzzing flies and a stench that never truly fades. In the dead of winter, you try to wait as long as possible to venture out, dreading the shock of cold air on bare skin and the way the wind seems to mock your misery. Sometimes you use a chamber pot if it is too dark or dangerous to go outside, but someone must empty it in the morning, and that someone is always you. You have heard stories of the city where people dump their waste into the street and the gutters flow with filth. You cannot imagine it being worse than here, though you suspect it is. At least in the village, the dirt is honest. You know its source, you know its dangers. Illnesses spread easily. You watch your younger siblings' faces for the flush of fever, the hollow eyes that warn of another wave of sickness. Washing helps, your mother claims, though you know it is mostly for show. Sometimes the priest scolds the village for its sins, claiming that filth is punishment for wickedness, but you know better. Dirt is simply part of your life, as constant and inescapable as hunger and cold. You end your morning ablutions feeling no cleaner than you started, only colder and more aware of the weight of grime that clings to you. But there is no time to dwell. There is work to be done, and no one in your world has ever survived by worrying over dirt. So you get on with it, as you always do, telling yourself that this too is what it means to live. There is a popular saying, invented centuries from now, about breakfast being the most important meal of the day. You suppose that is true, but only in the way that breathing is important. If you fail to do it, you will notice, and not in a pleasant way. In your world, breakfast is not a cheerful table laden with eggs, warm loaves, fruit, and sweet jams. No one here wakes to the smell of fresh bread unless you count the sour, lingering odor of old crusts that have forgotten what it means to be fresh. Your breakfast is bread. It is always bread. If it is not bread, it is nothing at all. On especially unlucky mornings, you scrape the bottom of the meal sack and find only a thin dusting of flour clinging to the sides. But today, by some miracle, there is still a hunk left. You pull it from the wooden chest where you hide it from the rats and your younger siblings. The bread is hard enough to be considered a weapon. You once watched your brother chase a chicken with it, swinging the loaf like a club. The chicken lived, but your brother's hand stung for days. You try to remember when this bread was baked. 3 days ago? 5? Time blurs when every day is the same. If you are lucky, it was only last week. If you are not, it was the week before. You cannot recall the last time you tasted soft bread, the kind that breaks apart with just a gentle squeeze. Your bread is dense, solid, and indestructible unless you soak it in hot water or broth, if there is any to spare, which there almost never is. You break off a piece using all your strength and hear the crust crack like dry twigs. Inside, the bread is grayish, flecked with things you try not to think about. A quick inspection reveals at least 3 dead weevils and 1 live one. You flick the live one away with your fingernail, not because you are squeamish, but because you are tired of extra crunch. Sometimes, when the bread is truly bad, the weevils outnumber the crumbs. Your mother insists they are just extra protein, but you are not convinced. Still, hunger is a powerful persuader. You eat what you have, and you do not complain. The rest of the family gathers around the hearth, shuffling in the gloom, rubbing sleep from their eyes. The youngest children whine, demanding more than their fair share. You dole out the portions with the stern authority of someone who knows the consequences of generosity: hunger later, or none at all. The crusts go to the oldest, the softest bits, if there are any, to the smallest. Sometimes you take nothing for yourself, not out of kindness, but out of grim arithmetic. If you eat too much now, there will not be enough for tomorrow. You chew slowly, working your jaw until it aches. The bread tastes of sour air, the wood smoke from the hearth, and a faint bitterness that lingers on your tongue. Sometimes there is mold, green or white, and you pick it off as best you can. If it is too much, you scrape it away with a knife, but usually you just eat around it. Mold, like dirt, is simply a part of life. There are no cups of milk, no honey, no fruit. On feast days, twice a year if you are lucky, someone might bring a slab of cheese, crumbly and sharp, and for a moment you remember what pleasure tastes like. Most days, though, you eat to fill the hollow, not to delight in flavor. You drink water with your bread, cool and heavy with the taste of the well. Sometimes, if you are sick or the well is bad, you do not drink at all, and then the bread sticks in your throat, and you choke until tears prick your eyes. The family eats in silence. There is no time or energy for conversation in the morning. Your mother mutters a prayer under her breath, thanking God for the food and in the same breath asking for more. You do not remember the last time a prayer brought anything other than more of the same. Breakfast is over quickly. There is work to be done, and no one lingers over crumbs. You sweep the table, such as it is, and collect the fallen bits for the chickens. Nothing is wasted, ever, even stale bread, ground to dust, will be mixed into porridge or soup when there is enough, if there is ever enough. Sometimes you daydream about bread that is soft and warm, bread that is white and sweet, the kind you have heard about in stories. You imagine the smell of it, the way it might melt on your tongue, the way it could make you feel, even for a moment, as if the world is not all cold and hard edges. But these are just dreams, and you quickly shove them aside. Hunger does not care about dreams. You tie your shawl tighter around your shoulders and step outside to begin your chores, your belly only half full, but your mind already elsewhere. There will be no second breakfast, no hidden treat to look forward to. The day has begun, and already you are tired. This, you think, is how it is. Bread and hunger, hunger and bread. And still the day stretches on before you, indifferent and unchanging. You are not surprised when the draft creeps in beneath the door, curling around your ankles as you prepare for the day. No matter how you try to block the cracks with straw or rags, the cold always finds its way through. There are days when you feel as if the wind itself is watching, waiting for the exact moment you let your guard down. On those days, the only comfort is the shroud of your clothes, such as they are. Clothes in your world are not an expression of taste or wealth, at least not for you. For the wealthy, perhaps, silks and velvets are a second skin, their lives a parade of color and choice. For you, clothing is a matter of necessity, of mending and making do. Each thread is precious, each patch a record of survival, each stain a badge of the daily grind. Your wardrobe, if it can be called that, fits into a single battered chest at the foot of your straw bed. In truth, most of it is on your back at all times. You begin with the underdress, a coarse, faded garment, the color of old parchment. It is thin, patched at the elbows and knees, and was once your mother's. Before her, it belonged to her older sister, or so the family story goes. You suspect it is older than anyone in the house. The fabric, though worn, has grown soft in the way that only truly old linen can, and it carries the permanent scent of wood smoke, tallow, and the earth floor. You tie it at the waist with a length of string, itself scavenged from a flour sack. There is a hole near the hem, carefully stitched, but never quite closed, through which your toe sometimes peeks. Over this, you pull your dress, the main one. If you are lucky, you have a second, kept hidden away for feast days or funerals, but this one is your armor. The color is hard to determine, dulled by sun and scrubbing, somewhere between brown and green and gray. The fabric is heavy wool, rough and scratchy, and it itches no matter how much you ignore it. There are patches upon patches, scraps from old shirts and long gone skirts, each sewn with whatever thread could be found. One sleeve is a slightly different color from the rest, a legacy of your mother's habit of cutting up old clothes to save the new. You wonder, idly, whose sleeve it once was. Does anyone remember? Does it matter? The dress does not fit perfectly. Nothing ever does. It sags at the shoulders and pinches at the waist, a constant reminder that you are still growing, but clothes do not grow with you. When you outgrow this one, it will be passed down to your younger sister or cut apart for rags. For now, you make do. There is no sense wishing for something better. Wishing is for those who have enough to be bored. In the winter, you layer what you can, an old shawl, so thin it is nearly transparent, a cloak with a frayed edge and a missing clasp. Sometimes you wrap your feet in strips of linen before putting on your shoes. Shoes, of course, are a rare and precious thing. You have one pair so battered and patched that they no longer have a right or left, just two misshapen lumps of leather held together by sheer will and more stitches than you can count. When the shoes finally give way, you will go barefoot as you did in the summer, dodging sharp stones and the ever present mud. Hats and gloves are for the rich, so you make do with what you have, pulling your shawl over your head on cold mornings, blowing on your hands to keep them from stiffening. Your fingers are always red and raw, your nails bitten and split from work. The cold bites deeper through thin cloth, and there are days when you think you might never feel warm again. Lice are your constant companions. They make their home in your seams and your scalp, stubborn and tenacious. You do what you can to fight them, picking through your hair, boiling your dress when you can spare the water and firewood, but they always return. Sometimes, when you sit with the other village girls and pick at each other's scalps, you pretend you are noble ladies at court, being groomed for some grand event. It is a joke, but one you cling to because laughter is rare and precious too. You cannot remember the last time you wore something new. The idea of newness is almost frightening. New things stand out. They are noticed, envied, sometimes stolen. Old things are safer. Old things know their place. On feast days, if you are fortunate, you might wear your mother's best apron, carefully ironed under a heavy pot, or a ribbon saved from years ago. These are the days when the village gathers and the priest scolds you for your sins, and you want to look as presentable as possible. But most days, you are just another face in the crowd, lost in a sea of patched and faded dresses, all carrying the same marks of struggle and time. Your brothers are no better off. Their trousers are patched at the knees, their shirts mended until the original fabric is just a memory. The little ones sometimes run naked in the summer, their clothes saved for when it matters. You envy their innocence, the way they seem not to care. Soon they will care as you do. Soon they will understand the silent shame of poverty, the way it stains you more deeply than mud. You look at yourself, at your hands, your dress, your shoes, and sigh. You do not wish for finery or jewels, only for something warm, something that does not itch, something that does not carry the stories of generations before you. But even these small wishes feel dangerous. Better to keep your head down to make do, to survive. And so you do, wrapping yourself in layers of history and resignation, stepping out into the world as you are, clad in rags and endurance, armed with nothing but stubbornness, and the hope that one day you might pass these clothes down to someone else and live to see it. The day does not wait for you to finish sighing over your clothes. In your world, work begins before the sun ever shows its pale face above the ragged tree line, and it continues until the last ember dies in the hearth. The concept of free time is a story told by old women who have gone soft in the head. You know the truth. Every hour of light is for labor, and the hours of darkness are only for those tasks you can do by feel or firelight. Your chores begin at the same time every day, early, always early. Even as a child, you were not allowed to sleep past dawn. Now, as a girl old enough to be useful, your duties are many and unending. You do not bother to list them anymore. Your hands know what to do before your mind is fully awake. First comes the sweeping. The floor is dirt, but that does not mean it is clean. Dust, ashes, and crumbs gather overnight, and the chickens sometimes slip inside, leaving their droppings on the hard packed ground. You sweep with a broom made of bundled twigs bound with twine. The broom is nearly as old as you are, and twice as tired. Still, it pushes the worst of the mess out the door, where the wind and rain will finish the job. Next is the fire. It must never be allowed to go out. If it does, you will spend precious time coaxing it back to life, blowing until your cheeks ache, feeding it splinters and scraps. You remember one winter when the fire died. The whole house shivered for days, and your mother's temper was colder than the air outside. Since then, you have made it your personal crusade to keep it alive, as if warmth itself depends on your vigilance. With the fire crackling, you move to the animals. Every family in the village has some chickens, a goat if they are lucky, sometimes a half starved pig. You feed the chickens, scattering a meager handful of grain, shooing them from the doorway. Their feathers are ragged, their eyes sharp. They peck at your bare feet if you move too slowly. The eggs, if there are any, go straight into your apron pocket, carefully counted and guarded from greedy siblings. If you are truly fortunate, there is a cow in the shed. Milking is a thankless task. The cow's hide is cold, and her mood is colder. She swishes her tail at your face, sometimes hitting you with the full force of her irritation. You sit on a broken stool, your hands numb, squeezing and pulling until the milk comes in reluctant spurts. The milk is never white, never clean. Bits of straw and dirt float in it, and you strain it through cloth before anyone drinks. Still, it is precious, and you guard every drop as if it were gold. After the animals, the real work begins. The fields call to you. If it is planting time, you will spend the day bent double, pushing seeds into the mud, your back aching long before noon. If it is harvest, you wield a dull blade, slicing through stalks of rye or barley, your hands blistered and bleeding. There is no room for laziness. The work must be done, and there are never enough hands to do it. In the garden behind the house, You pull weeds until your fingers are green and raw. You plant cabbages, onions, beans, anything that will grow and fill a belly. Some years the earth is kind, and the harvest is enough. Most years it is not, and you watch your mother's face grow more pinched as the winter stores dwindle. On days when the weather is foul or the fields do not call, you turn to other tasks. You mend clothes, your needle moving in and out of fabric with mindless repetition. You spin wool into thread, your fingers pinching and pulling until they cramp. You scrub pots and pans with handfuls of sand, scraping away the stubborn remains of last night's thin stew. You collect firewood from the edge of the forest, always wary of the stories about wolves and worse things that live in the shadows. You do not remember when you last sat still without a task in your hands. Even in the evenings, as the world darkens, you keep working. The loom needs weaving, the bread needs kneading, the younger children need watching. Your mother's voice, sharp and weary, reminds you of what is left to do. There is always something left to do. Sometimes you glimpse the boys outside, their laughter ringing as they chase each other down the lane, but even they are not free for long. The fields need plowing, the animals need tending, the wood needs chopping. Everyone works, or everyone goes hungry. You have heard stories, always stories, of ladies who spend their days in embroidery or music, whose hands never touch dirt, whose skin is pale and soft. You can not imagine such a life. Your hands are calloused, your skin is burned by sun and wind, your back is crooked from carrying, hauling, lifting, always lifting. You are not ashamed of this. It is simply how it is. Sometimes your body rebels. Your arms ache, your legs tremble, your head swims with exhaustion. But there is no room for weakness. If you complain, your mother will scold you, or worse, your father will hear, and his patience is as thin as the gruel you eat on lean days. So you grit your teeth and carry on, because there is no other way. The sun moves slowly across the sky, marking the long hours with heat or cold, with the endless repetition of motion. You work until your fingers bleed, until your back screams, until darkness falls and the house fills with the soft glow of firelight. At the end of the day, you collapse onto your pallet of straw, too tired even to think. Tomorrow, it will all begin again. Another day of work, another day of surviving. You do not dream of rest. You know better than that. This, you remind yourself, is life, a chain of chores, an endless loop of effort, with no hope of reprieve. And you endure because there is nothing else. There is a lie whispered in firesides and recited from the pulpit that everyone has a place in the world, a purpose given by God or fate. Perhaps, for some, this is true. You are not one of them. In your world, your place is so low it is hardly noticed at all. A pebble in the road, a shadow in the corner, a name on a list only because someone must be blamed when something is missing or broken. You have no voice in anything that matters. The rules were set long before you were born, and your days are governed by them as surely as the sun rises and sets. You are a daughter, a girl, and for as long as you can remember, you have been told exactly what that means. You listen, you obey, and above all, you do not draw attention to yourself. Being invisible is a survival skill. You have mastered it. When decisions are made in your family, you are not present. You are in the corner, mending a shirt or minding a child, while the men, your father, your older brothers, your uncles, argue and gesture, voices rising and falling in rhythms you do not interrupt. If you speak out of turn, the best you can hope for is a sharp word. More often, you receive a cuff to the ear, a hard reminder of where your opinions belong. Even your mother, the hardest worker you know, treads carefully around the moods of the men. She rules the kitchen and the household, but the real power is not hers. When her voice is sharp, it is only because she knows how little space there is for softness. She is as trapped as you, and perhaps more bitterly, because she remembers a time when she hoped for more. Outside your home, in the village, your position is not much better. You walk with your head down, eyes on your feet. The priest nods at you on Sundays, but never speaks your name. If he visits your family, it is to speak with your father. If he notices you at all, it is to remind you of your duties. Be quiet, be pure, be useful. Your worth is measured in chores completed, mouths fed, mistakes avoided. You are not the only one. Every girl in the village lives in the same quiet shadow. Together, you form a silent, shifting background to the world of men. At festivals or market days, you gather in the corners, talking in whispers, eyes darting to make sure you are not noticed by the wrong person. When something goes wrong, a chicken missing, a fence broken, a rumor of bad luck, it is always the girls who are questioned first, as if your very existence causes trouble. You have learned to apologize even when you are not at fault, because arguing only makes things worse. Your reputation is a fragile thing, easy to ruin, impossible to repair. If you laugh too loudly, walk alone at dusk, speak to the wrong person, rumors take root and grow like weeds. It does not matter if they are true. In the eyes of the village, a girl's good name is as easily lost as a hen's egg and just as irreplaceable. The only way to keep it is to guard every word, every step, every look. This is your world, a place where you are both invisible and constantly watched. Your mistakes are remembered long after your achievements are forgotten. If a boy trips and falls, he is clumsy. If you trip, you are careless, vain, or sinful. If you work hard, it is nothing less than what is expected. If you falter, you are lazy. No one thanks you for doing well. They only notice when you do not. You have been told that a girl's greatest asset is her obedience. Obedience is safety. Obedience is respect. Obedience is the path to a good marriage. Your mother repeats these lessons like prayers, and you have absorbed them until you no longer question their truth. Sometimes you wonder what would happen if you stopped obeying. But the world has no patience for rebellion from those at the bottom. The boys have more freedom. They run in the fields, shout in the streets, and learn from their fathers how to make decisions. You envy them sometimes, not for their play, but for the casual way they take up space, the way they assume the world belongs to them. For you, space is always borrowed, always provisional, always at risk of being withdrawn. There are, of course, worse fates. There are girls in the village who have lost their place entirely, sent away as servants, married off to men far older, or whispered about for reasons no one will say aloud. You see the way the adults look at them, with pity, with suspicion, sometimes with relief that it was not their own daughter. You learn to be grateful for small mercies, even as you resent them. Sometimes, when you lie awake at night, you wonder if anyone will ever know who you are. Not your name, not your family, but the person who exists behind the chores, the silence, the obedience. It is a dangerous thought, and you push it aside. The world does not want to know you. It wants you to fit your role, to keep the wheels turning, to survive without complaint. In the end, you do as you have always done. You make yourself small. You do as you are told, and you hope that invisibility will protect you from the world's sharper edges. Your place in society is not marked by pride or power, but by the absence of both, a zero on the ledger, a ghost in your own life. And so, another day passes, and you continue to endure. There are many kinds of property in your world: land, livestock, coins kept in secret places, tools handed down through generations, even the lingering scent of bread in the morning if you are lucky. But for you, for girls like you, there is only one asset that truly matters, and it is not something you own or even control. It is something you are: a virgin. In the calculations of family and community, your worth lies not in your hands or your mind or even your face, but in the thin, intangible membrane of reputation, a thing both invisible and endlessly discussed. From the time you are old enough to understand language, you are told that your virginity is precious. It is spoken of in low voices, eyes darting to make sure no boys are listening. Your mother and grandmother tell you stories of girls who squandered their gift and the misery that followed, stories meant to scare you, to keep you vigilant. At first, you did not understand what was being protected, only that something dangerous and invisible could be taken from you with consequences as final as death. Your father is less poetic. To him, your virginity is a matter of trade, no different from a healthy cow or a plot of land. He watches you the way a merchant watches his wares at market, suspicious, never trusting, quick to check for signs of damage. When he speaks about your future, it is always in terms of what you can bring to the family through marriage, through alliance, through the sale of your untouched status to the highest or most advantageous bidder. He never asks you what you want, because it is assumed that what you should want is to be useful. You live under the constant threat of being spoiled, as if you are a pot precariously balanced on a shelf. The rules are strict. Do not talk to boys. Do not walk alone. Do not leave the house after dark. Do not laugh too loudly. Do not look a man in the eye for too long. Do not be too pretty. Do not be too ugly. Every action is a risk. every mistake a potential disaster. If something happens to you, it will always be your fault. That lesson is drilled into you with the same regularity as the daily prayers. The scrutiny is relentless. Your mother inspects your clothes, making sure nothing is too tight or too loose. Nothing could be mistaken for an invitation. Your brothers watch who you talk to and report back with the zeal of self appointed guardians. Even your friends are a liability. Choose them badly, and you risk guilt by association. You have seen how quickly the village turns on a girl who is suspected of even the smallest transgression. The whispers grow, feeding on themselves, until her family is left with no choice but to send her away or marry her off to anyone who will have her, no matter how old, how cruel, or how poor. You do not resent the vigilance, not exactly. You understand, in the way that animals understand the fence around the pasture. It is a protection, but also confinement. The older you get, the more you realize how thin the line is between protection and control. You do not remember when you stopped feeling safe in your own home and started feeling watched. Sometimes you hear laughter from the boys as they run in the street, their futures wide and untroubled. They have no asset that can be lost in a single moment, no single mistake that can ruin their prospects forever. They can take risks, play, even misbehave, and still grow up to be men. For you, there are no second chances. Once lost, your value vanishes, and nothing, no amount of work, no beauty, no skill can bring it back. You are currency, and currency cannot be spent twice. The family's fortunes rise and fall on the tightrope of your reputation. If you make it to marriage intact, your father's status improves. He may get a better field, a bigger dowry, a more important friend. If you do not, the consequences ripple through the house like a curse. You have seen it happen more than once. A girl makes a mistake, and suddenly her sisters are less desirable, her brothers are laughed at, her parents lose respect in the village. A single misstep poisons the whole well. The unfairness is so ingrained it barely feels like unfairness anymore. It is simply the way of things, like the cycle of the seasons or the coming of night. Your grandmother tells you to accept it with grace, to carry your burden quietly. She says that one day you will understand the wisdom of silence. You nod, though you are not sure you ever will. Your own feelings, if you have any, are irrelevant. You do not belong to yourself. You belong to your family first, then to your future husband, then to the children you might bear. You are a vessel for hope or for disappointment, depending on how well you guard what cannot be seen, but is apparently always at risk. You move through your days in a kind of constant negotiation, balancing the need to be present and useful with the need to be invisible and unapproachable. You develop the habit of looking down, of answering softly, of never laughing too loudly. You learn that the best way to avoid suspicion is to never give anyone a reason to look at you twice. You perfect the art of being unremarkable. There are moments, late at night, when you wonder what it would feel like to belong to yourself, even for a day. but you quickly push the thought away. Dreams are as dangerous as mistakes. You have learned to value caution above all else, to treat your life as if it is made of glass, easily shattered, impossible to repair. And so you guard your so called treasure not with pride, but with weary resignation, knowing it is both your only power and your greatest vulnerability. You hope, for your sake and your family's, that you will make it to the day when your value is finally transferred to someone else, and that, in the meantime, you will not stumble. This is what it means to be a hired virgin, a status that is both everything and nothing, a burden you never chose, and a future you are not allowed to question. You are not merchandise. At least, that is what your mother whispers on the rare evenings when the fire is low and the shadows seem friendlier than the world outside. She wants you to believe it, or maybe she wants to believe it herself. But when morning comes and the talk turns practical, always practical, there is no escaping the truth. You are the most valuable thing in the house, not because of what you can do or say or even dream, but because you are not yet chosen. The first time you notice the glances, you are younger than you care to remember. A neighbor's son lingers a little too long at the fence. An older man, a friend of your father's, smiles with a certain hunger. It is not kindness in their eyes, but calculation. They are measuring you, not with affection, but with the cold, assessing gaze of a farmer at the market, weighing the merits of a pig or a sack of barley. Even the ones who are not interested in you are interested in the possibilities you represent. More land, an alliance, the hope of a healthy brood of sons. Your mother tries to make it sound like a blessing. A good match is security for a girl, she says, smoothing your hair, her own hands trembling, but you see the way her jaw tightens when your father talks about dowries and property, about the kind of man you will be offered to. You are not naive. You know what happens to girls whose fathers cannot negotiate a decent match. You have seen their faces in church, eyes hollow, shoulders stooped, their children trailing after them like reminders of all the bargains gone wrong. The market for brides is not a place but a process, as ritualized and predictable as any fair, but colder. It begins with rumors. So and so has a son, nearly of age. Another family has lost a wife, and now the widower is looking for someone young and healthy to fill the empty space at his table and his bed. Your name is mentioned, not to you, never to you, but to your father and brothers, as if you are a piece of land they are considering fencing off. The suitors appear slowly, never directly. There are small gifts left at your door, apples, a length of ribbon, a rare slice of cheese. Your mother sniffs at them, weighing their value and their message. She is not fooled by flattery. She knows the difference between a real offer and a desperate one. Some suitors are hopeful, others are calculating. All are looking for something to claim. They do not talk to you, except perhaps to say you have grown, or to offer a limp compliment about your hands or your eyes. You have learned to nod and say thank you, to look at the ground, to never, ever reveal your thoughts. The negotiations are done in whispers and glances. Your father walks with another man down the lane, their voices low. You are sent away to fetch water or tend the fire, but you know what they are talking about. Sometimes your mother is included, but her job is to nod and smile, to make promises about your skills, how well you spin, how neat your stitches, how obedient your nature. You try to make yourself smaller, to fade into the background. The less you are noticed, the fewer opinions are formed about your flaws. There are moments when you feel hope stir, when the suitor is young, perhaps not unkind, or when your mother whispers that he is gentle with animals, or that his house is warm and his fields fertile. But mostly, you feel dread. Some suitors are old, already broken by life, with the smell of rot clinging to them. Others are known to have tempers, or debts, or children from another wife, dead or otherwise gone. Your own preferences do not enter into it. Your job is to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. No one asks you what you want. If you are lucky, your mother might slip you a few words of advice. Do not show your teeth when you smile. Stand straight. Speak softly. You nod and practice the art of looking useful, but not opinionated, healthy, but not proud, present, but not bold. The goal is to be chosen, not for yourself, but for what you represent. A smooth transaction, a good investment, a risk worth taking. Sometimes you hear stories, always stories, of girls who refuse their match, who run away or say no. These are cautionary tales. The girls in the stories always come to bad ends, alone, hungry, or worse, forced into begging or worse trades. The lesson is clear. Be grateful for what you are offered, no matter how paltry it seems. The day may come, sooner than you wish, when your father announces a match has been made. He will say it as if he has just negotiated a sale of cattle or a new plot of land. Your brothers may laugh, slap each other on the back. Your mother's eyes will flicker with something like relief, something like mourning. You will be expected to thank them all, to pray for the success of your match, to prepare for a future you did not choose. You wonder, in rare moments of honesty, what the boys feel when they are matched. You suspect it is different. They look forward while you brace yourself. For them, marriage is a gateway to responsibility, land, and respect. For you, it is a narrow bridge between your family's expectations and another family's demands. A bridge you must cross carefully, knowing there is no way back. In the end, your value is determined by others. You are praised for being quiet, modest, and hardworking, but you know the truth. Your virtue is only as useful as the deal it can secure. If you bring in a good match, your family's fortunes rise. If not, you are another mouth to feed, another burden to bear, another reminder of what might have been. So you practice your smile in the reflection of a dirty window, you smooth your dress, and you wait to be called. In the medieval market of brides, you are the commodity, and the only thing worse than being sold is being left unsold. There is a saying in your village, a woman's work is never done. No one bothers to add that a girl's work is the same, just with less praise and more correction. You have learned from a young age that the house itself is hungry, never satisfied, always ready with another demand, the moment you pause for breath. Your day is an endless circuit of tasks. There is the sweeping, the water hauling, the tending of animals, but these are only the beginning. The real work is inside, in the dark corners and the cramped kitchen, where nothing is ever clean enough or finished enough to meet your mother's standards, or anyone else's for that matter. You start with the fire, feeding it carefully, coaxing it to life, even when the wood is damp or the wind howls down the chimney. The fire is the heart of the home, and without it, nothing else happens. No food, no warmth, no light to work by. If you let it die, even for an hour, the cold seeps in and the whole family suffers. You have burned your fingers more times than you can count. But the pain is just another reminder that the world is not made for your comfort. There is always bread to bake or dough to knead, porridge to stir, or stew to scrape from the pot. Your hands grow raw from scrubbing, your knuckles reddened by cold water and the constant friction of stone and wood. You peel potatoes, slice onions, pluck chickens when there is one to pluck, which is rare enough that you remember each occasion as a minor holiday. The work is not difficult, not in the way that swinging an axe or plowing a field is difficult, but it is relentless. Every meal leaves behind a mess. Every mess, another hour spent cleaning. Every hour, another chance for someone to point out what you have missed. Linen must be washed, often in freezing water, your arms plunged up to the elbows until they go numb. You scrub and wring and hang the clothes to dry, knowing they will never be as white as the church linens, never as soft as the cloaks worn by passing lords and ladies. You patch holes, sew on buttons, darn socks with scraps of yarn pulled from unraveling sleeves. When the light is good, you sit by the window and let your eyes rest on the fields for a moment, but only a moment, before your mother's voice calls you back. The youngest children are your constant shadow. You feed them, dress them, wipe their noses, and chase them out of the fire's reach. Their small hands are sticky, their faces always dirty, but you do not mind. At least they are company, and sometimes their laughter reminds you that there is life beyond chores. But if they cry or fight or break something, it is your fault, and you are expected to fix it. There are floors to sweep, tables to scrub, rushes to change. You shake out blankets, beat the dust from straw mattresses, chase mice from the pantry, and weevils from the flour. You do all of this under your mother's watchful eye, her voice a constant thread of reminders, instructions, and, if you are lucky, occasional praise. Mostly, she finds fault. The soup is too thin, the bread is too hard, the water is not clear enough, the children's faces not clean enough. There is little room for mistakes. If you burn the bread or spill the milk, you are scolded. If you break a cup or tear a dress, you are sent out to fetch a switch from the hedgerow. You quickly learn the difference between honest error and careless laziness, but the line can move depending on your mother's mood or your father's temper. Some days, it seems you can do nothing right. The chores never end. In summer, you gather herbs and wild greens, your hands stained with the juice of nettles and dock. You dry the herbs in the attic, stringing them on lengths of twine, and praying they do not mold before winter comes. In autumn, you help preserve what little harvest you have managed to gather, pickling onions, drying apples, laying up jars of what passes for jam. In winter, you knit by the fire, your fingers numb and clumsy, hoping for enough wool to make one more scarf or pair of mittens. You are always busy, but never caught up. Your mother says this is a sign of a good home. There is always work to do, always something that can be improved or cleaned or mended. Sometimes you believe her. Other times it feels like a punishment handed down by fate. You know that your brothers, for all their grumbling, spend more time in the open air, their work done when the sun goes down. For you, the chores are as endless as the darkness that falls each night. You rarely have a moment to yourself. If you sit for too long, someone will notice. If you are idle, there is always something for you to do: a bucket to carry, a fire to tend, a child to mind. Your mother will remind you that a good girl is never idle, that the devil finds work for idle hands. You repeat this to yourself, even when your arms ache and your eyes sting with tiredness. Sometimes you think of the women in the manor, their hands soft and their voices gentle. You imagine a life where your only worry is whether your hair is braided neatly or your dress is clean for the next feast. But you know better. Those lives are not for you, and even they, you suspect, are filled with rules and restrictions. Here, at least, you know what is expected. You fall into bed at the end of each day, your mind still buzzing with the list of things undone. There will be more chores tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, until you are old enough to move to someone else's house and do it all again. This is your role, your inheritance, your endless task. And so you get up and do it, because that is what is required, and because in your world there is no such thing as an end to a woman's work. You do not need to be told that sickness is always lurking, invisible but close, just beyond the walls of your house, and sometimes, when luck is bad, inside them. Illness is part of the landscape, as certain as mud in the street or hunger in the winter. No one is ever truly healthy. The best you can hope for is to be not sick today, and even that can change between sunrise and sunset. It begins with a cough, usually. There are always coughs in the house, deep, rattling ones from the old people, sharper ones from the children, hacking ones that bring up phlegm streaked with blood. Sometimes you wake in the night to the sound of someone gasping for air, a sound so familiar that you barely flinch anymore. When a fever comes, it is like a shadow falling across the bed. You press your hand to a forehead, feeling the unnatural heat, and know, without being told, that work will fall heavier on your shoulders for the next few days or weeks if the fever lingers. The remedies are simple and often useless. You fetch water from the well, hoping the cold will bring down the fever. Your mother brews foul-smelling teas from dried roots and bitter herbs gathered from the edge of the woods. You mop sweat from brows, hold trembling hands, whisper prayers you half remember from the church. Sometimes you are sent for the priest, and his arrival means that hope is running out. The priest brings his own remedies, mumbled Latin, the sharp scent of incense, promises of salvation. His hands are soft and clean, but he never stays long. You have seen what happens when an illness takes hold. A child's face grows gaunt, eyes too large for their head. An elder slips into sleep and does not wake. Neighbors talk of bad air and evil humors, as if naming the sickness can make it less real. Sometimes, people simply vanish from the daily pattern of village life. A spot at the table empty, a pair of shoes by the door untouched, a voice gone silent. The dead are carried out quickly, wrapped in the same linens that once covered the beds, and buried in shallow graves behind the church marked only by stones or rough crosses. There is no time for mourning. The work must go on. You are not immune. When sickness comes to you, there is no comfort. You are expected to recover or die quickly, not linger and become a burden. If you are lucky, your illness is a day or two of shivering under a pile of blankets, the world spinning with every breath. If you are not lucky, it drags on, sapping your strength, stealing your appetite. Your mother checks your eyes and your tongue, muttering about the color, and you know she is measuring how close you are to the edge. The remedies, when they work at all, are almost as bad as the sickness. You have had leeches placed on your arms, their slick bodies sucking blood, while your mother whispers that it will draw out the poison. You have been made to drink brews so bitter that you vomit them back up, only to be forced to drink again. You have been rubbed with goose fat, wrapped in linen, made to sweat out fevers in front of a fire so hot you thought it might burn you alive. Sometimes these things work. More often, they do nothing. You know the stories of plagues, real and imagined, whole villages lost, streets filled with corpses, fields left to rot as everyone flees or dies. Your grandmother speaks of a time, not so many years ago, when the pestilence came and took every child in one house and every elder in another. These are not tales to frighten children, but memories of reality. When someone coughs too long or too many people fall sick at once, a hush falls over the village. The market grows quiet, doors stay closed, and prayers are whispered with more urgency. You try to protect yourself, but there is little you can do. The water is never truly clean. The food is often spoiled. The air itself thick with the smells of dung, smoke, and rot. The filth seeps into every corner, and you know it is a breeding ground for things you cannot see or name. Even when you clean, the dirt returns faster than you can banish it. Death, when it comes, is rarely gentle. It comes as a wasting, a bleeding, a drowning from within. Sometimes it is sudden, a fall, a wound gone bad, a fever that burns too bright. Sometimes it is slow and cruel, the body shrinking, the eyes growing hollow, the voice fading until all that is left is a whisper and a rattle. When the end finally comes, there is relief, less from grief than from the lifting of a burden. The living must keep moving, keep working, keep surviving. If you survive an illness, you are marked by it. Scars, a limp, a weakness that never fully fades. You learn not to complain. Complaints are wasted breath. And anyway, everyone is suffering something. Pain is as normal as hunger, and you wear it quietly, not because you are brave, but because no one is listening. There are healers in the village, women who know herbs and old secrets. Some are respected, others are feared. You have seen them spat at in the street, accused of witchcraft when their remedies fail or when their cures work too well. You wonder sometimes if they have any answers at all, or if they are only guessing like everyone else. You are taught to fear death, but also to expect it. The church says this world is a test, that suffering brings you closer to God. You recite the prayers, cross yourself, hope for mercy, but you know in your heart that faith is as much about endurance as it is about hope. When death comes, you are supposed to face it with dignity, to surrender gracefully, to trust that your soul will find peace. But you have seen too many faces twisted with pain, too many hands reaching for comfort that never comes. So you live each day with caution, with resignation, with the quiet certainty that illness is always waiting. You do not waste your strength worrying about what you cannot control. You simply keep going because there is no alternative. In the end, life in your world is a constant negotiation with death. You make bargains. One more day, one more chore, one more meal, and hope that luck, or God, or sheer stubbornness will carry you through to the next sunrise. You live under the shadow of a God who is everywhere and always watching, or so you are told. From the first time your mother dragged you to the stone church, shoving your hair under a bonnet and warning you to keep your eyes down, you have been taken open that your every thought and action is weighed and measured against an invisible scale. In this world, religion is not comfort, but surveillance, not a soft blanket, but a set of iron bars. Each Sunday, the church bell tolls, a deep, mournful sound that rolls over the fields and settles on your shoulders like a physical weight. The whole village walks in a slow, muddy parade to the church at the hill's crown. The priest stands at the door, solemn and sharp eyed, greeting the men by name and the women with a nod. You keep your gaze low, your hands clasped tight, trying to blend in with the other girls who are doing the same. Everyone smells of smoke and earth and old wool. Inside, the church is cold even in summer. The air is thick with incense, but it cannot quite hide the sense of wet boots, unwashed hair, and the candle wax melting on the altar. You shuffle into a pew with your family, knees pressed together, back rigid. Your father stands tall, your mother quiet but vigilant. You take your place among the other daughters, lined up like sheep for inspection. The sermon is a litany of warnings. Sin lurks in every corner: pride, envy, sloth, but especially the sins reserved for girls like you: immodesty, disobedience, unclean thoughts. The priest's voice is a steady drone, but you learn early to pay attention. He has a sharp memory for faces and an even sharper tongue for those who seem inattentive. Sometimes he singles out girls by name, reminding everyone of the dangers of womanly temptation and the importance of purity. The boys fidget and smirk, the girls shrink smaller. Confession is a ritual of dread. Your mother instructs you in how to list your sins. I was slow in my chores. I spoke sharply to my brother. I coveted my neighbor's ribbon. You are not taught to question the meaning of these rules. You are taught to obey, to repent, to accept that guilt is your natural state. If you cannot think of a sin, you invent one. It is better to confess too much than risk the suspicion of pride. You kneel on the cold stone, whispering your list to the priest through a wooden screen. His questions are always the same. Have you been obedient? Have you harbored impure thoughts? Have you spoken out of turn? You answer yes, 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 even when you are not sure. The relief of penance, a dozen prayers, a day of silence is almost a comfort. It is a small price to pay to keep suspicion away. Religion is not just for Sundays. It orders your days, prayers in the morning, prayers before meals, prayers before bed. Your mother mutters blessings as she kneads bread, crosses herself at every shadow. There are saints for every need and disaster, saints for lost keys, saints for sick children, saints for a good harvest, saints for finding a husband who is not cruel. You light candles for them when you can spare the wax, hoping they will notice you among the hundreds of other desperate pleas. The church controls not only your spirit, but your body. It dictates how you dress, modest, covered, colors subdued. It decides what days you may eat meat, when you must fast, when you must kneel and pray for forgiveness, even if you do not know for what. Your mother tells you to obey without question, because the church's word is law, and questioning is a kind of sin itself. There is no room in this religion for joy or doubt, at least not for girls like you. The holy days are more work than rest, filled with special chores, longer services, and stricter rules. Lent is a time of hunger, Advent, a time of fear. You are told to be grateful for suffering, to offer it up as a sacrifice, to pray that it will make you worthy. Sometimes, late at night, you wonder if anyone is ever worthy enough. The priest preaches that women are the source of original sin, that Eve's failure is in your blood, your bones, your every impulse. You hear it so often that you start to believe it. When you are angry, you remind yourself it is your nature. When you are sad, you remember that suffering is your due. When you feel even a flicker of joy, you suppress it, fearing it is pride or vanity, a trap set by the devil. The rituals are meant to protect you, but they also keep you in your place. Holy water is flicked at your brow, crosses traced on your chest, hands laid on your head in silent warnings. Do not stray, do not question, do not desire. The only hope offered is a distant paradise, promised after death, if you can endure enough misery without complaint. You sometimes envy the men who seem to take their faith lightly, a badge to display at church and put aside the rest of the week. For you, it is a chain. Every mistake is a sin, every sin a threat to your soul, every threat another reason to obey. There are moments when the candles flicker just right, when the incense clouds your mind, and you almost feel what the priest describes, a world beyond suffering, a reward for patience. but the feeling passes. You return home, back to chores and dirt and cold, the burden of sin never truly lifted, only pressed down deeper by the weight of obedience. You dream sometimes, not of heaven, but of a world where your worth is not measured in prayers whispered or sins confessed. But such dreams are dangerous, so you bury them deep and recite another prayer just in case someone is listening. This, too, is the life you endure, a daily penance, an endless litany of guilt, and a hope for forgiveness that always seems just out of reach. If the walls of your house could speak, they would echo with the voices of men, loud or quiet, angry or bored. Their words fill the air with authority that you breathe in with every sigh. In the medieval world, the power of men is not hidden or subtle. It is the stone beneath your feet, the roof over your head, the rules you follow even when you do not understand them. Male power shapes your life so completely that you sometimes wonder if you exist at all, except as a shadow on the edge of their stories. In your house, your father's word is law. It is spoken in the deep, steady voice that decides when to eat, when to work, who can speak, and who must stay silent. Your brothers learn this voice before they can walk. You watch them imitate your father, puffing their chests, bossing the younger children, even trying to correct your mother when they think he is not listening. For you, there is no imitation, only obedience, reinforced by the knowledge that questioning brings swift correction. Disagreement is dangerous. If you ever challenge a decision, your father's hand answers quicker than his words. A slap, a shove, or a cold stare that promises worse if you do not yield. The pain is not the worst part. It is the knowledge that you brought it on yourself by forgetting your place. Even your mother, who endures as you do, warns you with her eyes. Do not make trouble. Do not draw notice. Do not ask for kindness you are not owed. The world outside your house is no different. The men of the village decide everything that matters: land boundaries, crop rotations, the sharing of water, the enforcement of justice, such as it is. If a fence is broken, they argue and fix it. If someone is accused of stealing, they judge and punish. You are expected to stand behind your mother, silent and invisible, while the men debate your future. On feast days or market days, the difference is most obvious. The men gather in the square, drinking, laughing, shouting over each other. The women and girls stay at the edge, trading gossip in low voices, hands busy with children or baskets. If you must speak to a man, you do it with your head bowed, your answers brief, your eyes averted. Any sign of boldness can be misread as defiance, and defiance is never tolerated, least of all from a girl with nothing to bargain but her reputation. There are rules for everything, and all of them are written by men. What you wear, where you go, what you do, whom you may speak to, all are determined by their permission. If you break a rule, the consequences are swift and certain. Sometimes the rules change without warning. You learn to move carefully, to watch for signs of irritation or danger, to sense when the air has shifted and silence is your only defense. Marriage is the clearest proof of male power. Your future is decided in conversations where you are not present, your fate bartered like livestock for a handful of coins, a strip of land, a promise of peace between neighbors. If you are lucky, your new husband will be young or gentle. If you are not, he will be as stern as your father, or worse, a stranger with a temper, a hunger, a house full of his own rules. Once you are married, you belong to him in every way, your labor, your body, your children. If he is kind, you are envied. If he is cruel, you are pitied in whispers, though no one will risk offending him by offering help. The church reinforces this order, teaching that men are closer to God, made first, set above you by divine right. Your priest reminds the congregation often that a woman's duty is to obey, to serve, to submit in all things. You recite the prayers and memorize the verses, but you do not need scripture to know what is expected. You feel it every time your opinion is dismissed, every time your hand is slapped away, every time you are told to be quiet for your own good. There is female power in the world, but it is a small and secret thing, hidden in corners and shared in whispers. Your mother manages the household, keeps the peace, stretches scraps into meals, soothes tempers and fevers with equal skill. She knows who in the village is truly suffering and who only pretends. Sometimes, when your father is away, she speaks more freely, her words sharp and clever. But as soon as he returns, she fades back into her role, her strength veiled in humility. Older women, widows, midwives, healers, sometimes hold a strange kind of authority, feared as much as respected. They know things men do not, the secrets of birth and death, the uses of certain herbs, the stories that never reach the ears of the priest. But even their power is conditional. One accusation of witchcraft, one slip of the tongue, and their wisdom is turned against them. You watch them carefully, hoping to learn a little, but never too much. Safety is always in seeming harmless. You grow up knowing that your value depends on how well you follow the rules, how skillfully you avoid trouble, how quickly you apologize when things go wrong. You learn that kindness from men is rare and often comes with a price. You learn that silence is safer than truth, and that most truths are better kept to yourself. At night, you sometimes wonder what it would be like to speak without fear, to decide your own fate, to have your words matter. But then morning comes, and the world resets itself. The rules remain, and so do you, small, silent, cautious. You listen, you obey, you endure. It is not heroism, it is survival. In the medieval world, a girl's power is the power to endure, to survive unseen, to keep secrets, to bear the weight of rules you never wrote. It is not enough, but it is all you have. And so you carry on, because that too is a rule. There is a story in your village about a noblewoman who once rode through on her way to the distant city, wrapped in silks and perfumed oils, her face as pale as goat's milk. The villagers talk about how she lifted the hem of her gown and wrinkled her nose at the sight and smell of your world. It is a funny story, told with the sort of pride that comes from knowing you will never be so soft or so foolish. Because for you, for everyone you know, dirt is not a temporary condition. It is the default setting of existence. Cleanliness is a rumor, a myth that passes through your life in glimpses. The feel of rainwater rinsing your arms, the fleeting joy of a shirt dried in the sun, the rare moment after a festival bath when your skin tingles and smells faintly of wild herbs instead of the usual blend of sweat, smoke, and livestock. These moments are so rare and precious that you cling to them, counting the days until the next. But by the next sunrise, the dirt returns under your fingernails, in the folds of your dress, ground into your skin as surely as your own shadow. The house itself is built on dirt. The floor is packed earth, darkened with spills and soot, and the slow, persistent seep of dampness from below. Every footstep stirs up a faint, endless dust that settles on everything, on the table where you eat, the straw where you sleep, the pots and pans and whatever passes for decoration. You sweep, but the broom is no match for the tide. Sometimes you think the house is slowly sinking, year by year, into the mud it sits upon. Outside is no better. The village lane is a churn of muck, churned by bare feet and hooves and wooden wheels. In winter, the mud is cold enough to numb your toes. In summer, it bakes into hard, uneven lumps that trip the unwary. When it rains, everything becomes a river of filth, carrying chicken droppings, vegetable peelings, and other less pleasant things downhill. You learn to step carefully, always looking where you put your feet. You develop a sixth sense for where the mud is shallow and where it will swallow your shoe whole. Your clothes are a catalog of stains: grass from kneeling in the garden, soot from tending the fire, grease from the endless rounds of cooking and cleaning. No matter how hard you scrub, the stains linger. You wear your oldest dress for chores. Your least stained were Sundays and feasts. But even then, you cannot hide the brown smudges on your hem or the black under your nails. You know better than to care. No one else does. Your skin, too, carries the history of every task. Your hands are rough, the cracks dark with ground in dirt. Even after washing, the lines in your palms stay gray. Your face is often streaked with ash or earth, and your hair smells of smoke more often than not. If you are lucky, your mother lets you heat water for a quick wash on festival days. The rest of the time, you content yourself with cold splashes from the rain barrel, or, in desperate moments, a handful of dry grass to wipe away the worst. You share your home with other creatures who love dirt as much as you do. Mice scurry behind the walls, leaving trails of droppings in the pantry. Flies cluster on the windowsill, drawn to every spill. In summer, fleas and lice thrive in the seams of your bedding, biting you awake at midnight. Spiders weave webs in the corners, and even the chickens sometimes wander inside, tracking mud across the threshold. The smell of dirt is everywhere, a mix of earth and sweat, and something older, a reminder that the land was here before you and will remain long after you have gone. You notice it most When a stranger passes through, their face wrinkling, their fine shoes caked with mud after a single day, you smile to yourself, knowing they will leave soon, eager to escape back to their clean, hard, and lonely world. Here, the dirt is a kind of company, familiar and inescapable. Cleanliness, when it comes, is reserved for the church or the manor house. There, the floors are stone, the air heavy with incense and beeswax, the windows bright and clear. You marvel at the way your footsteps echo, how your dirty feet look out of place on the polished flagstones. You know you are only visiting, and you will bring a little of the outside world in with you, mud on your hem, dust on your hands. It is almost comforting to step back outside, to sink into the soft embrace of mud and straw and the rough, living world you know. Your mother used to scold you for being careless, for letting the dirt win, as if you had a choice. Now she shrugs and mutters that a little dirt never hurt anyone, and besides, it keeps the doctor away. You do not know if that is true, but you do know that you have survived this long with dirt under your nails, and you expect to die with it there too. Sometimes, late at night, you dream of running water, of hot baths, and sweet smelling soaps, of sheets as white as clouds. In the morning, you wake to the same brown stains on your hands and the familiar sour scent of earth. The dream fades quickly, washed away by the first trip to the well or the rush to feed the chickens. Dirt is not the enemy, it is the background, the setting, the canvas of your life. In the end, you accept it. Dirt is what keeps the crops growing, what feeds the animals, what covers the dead and cradles the living. You do not fight it, you live with it, and if you are wise, you even learn to respect it. For all its discomfort, it is the one thing that never leaves you. So you go about your day, brushing straw from your skirts, wiping your hands on your apron, and stepping carefully through the mud. Clean or dirty, it makes no difference. You are a child of the earth, marked by it in ways no washing will ever erase. You are never alone, not in any physical sense. The house is always full, siblings squabbling over a crust of bread, your mother's voice sharp with orders or softer with worry, your father's heavy steps shaking the floorboards. The baby cries. Someone is always ill, or hungry, or missing, or needing something only you can fetch. The village itself is no different, a warren of bodies and voices, always close, always within earshot. And yet, in all this constant company, you have learned that real solitude is not a matter of distance, but of understanding. No one asks what you think. Your thoughts are your own, which is to say, unimportant. When you speak, it is to answer a question or to repeat something you have been told. You are careful with your words, careful not to seem clever or strange or dissatisfied. Even your friends, if you can call them that, are not people to whom you can confess your true feelings. Friendship, for girls like you, is mostly shared labor and whispered warnings. Watch out for that goat, he bites. Do not let the boys see you laughing. Do not let anyone know how much you hate peeling onions. Everything is practical, nothing is personal. Your mother might seem the exception. Sometimes, late at night, when the fire has burned low and your siblings are asleep, she lets her mask slip. You see a flicker of the girl she once was. Hear a laugh that is more real than the tired sighs of the day. In those moments, you almost believe that she sees you, not just as another pair of hands, but as someone with hopes of your own. Almost, but always, the walls go back up. She reminds you to be grateful, to keep your head down, to trust in God's plan, even if it looks suspiciously like everyone else's bad luck. You know she loves you, but her love is practical. She keeps you alive, keeps you clothed, teaches you to survive in a world that gives little and takes much. It is a hard love, and it does not fill the hollow inside you. Even your own body does not truly belong to you. Every ache, every change is public property. If your belly swells with hunger, it is a family problem. If you begin to bleed each month, it is a household event. First shame, then chore, then just another secret to be guarded against boys and brothers. There is no privacy. The best you can do is keep your secrets small. A favorite place to sit by the well, a way to steal a few moments of peace by pretending to look for eggs in the henhouse. The church teaches that you are never alone because God is always watching. You do not find this comforting. If anything, it makes the walls seem closer, the air heavier. You are watched at home, in the village, in the fields, by people and by a God who, you suspect, is less interested in your happiness than in your obedience. There are other girls your age, and you share much. The burden of chores, the daily worries, the quiet dread of what the future holds. But even here, there is caution. Friendship can quickly turn to rivalry over a ribbon, over a compliment, over the attention of a boy you do not even like. Trust is dangerous. Secrets have a way of leaking out, growing larger and meaner as they travel from mouth to mouth. You know which girls to avoid, which ones might turn on you if it means escaping blame or getting ahead. Sometimes the loneliness is a relief. When you slip outside at dawn to fetch water, you are surrounded by silence, the world muted except for the crunch of your steps and the soft sigh of the wind. In these moments, you let yourself breathe deeply. Let your thoughts wander to places you will never visit and dreams you will never say aloud. These moments are brief. Soon enough, someone calls for you, and you go back, carrying water and the weight of your silence. There are moments in the church when the priest asks everyone to confess their sins in their hearts. You close your eyes, but there are no words for the ache you feel, the longing to be seen and known, even just for a moment. You do not pray for escape. What would be the point? You pray for the strength to keep going, to endure the next day and the next. You pray for the safety of invisibility. At night, the house is still, but your mind is busy. You wonder what your life might have been if you had been born a boy, or into a different family, or in a different world altogether. You know this is foolishness, that no good comes from wishing for what cannot be. Still, you let yourself imagine a room of your own, a moment of true privacy, a friend who asks what you think and listens to your answer. You drift to sleep surrounded by bodies, but alone in your thoughts. You dream sometimes of wide open fields where you can run without fear of being seen, of a world where your voice matters. But morning comes, and the noise begins again, crying children, barking dogs, the harsh bark of your mother's orders. The solitude slips away, and you gather yourself for another day of being useful, being silent, being unseen. In the crowded loneliness of your life, you learn that endurance is a kind of company. It stays with you when everyone else is gone, when the world feels too big and too small at the same time. You are alone among many, and that too is something you carry. You would think, with all the rules and restrictions, that the world would be a safe place for a girl who follows them. But you have learned the hard lesson. Danger does not care how careful you are. In the medieval world, peril waits everywhere. In broad daylight and the darkest night, in the fields, the village, and sometimes, worst of all, your own home. The street is the first threat. The lane that runs through your village is a ribbon of mud in winter, dust in summer, and trouble in every season. Gangs of boys and men linger at corners and wells, their laughter carrying the promise of mockery, or worse. You know not to walk alone, especially after dark, and you learn to avoid certain paths, certain faces. There are stories, always whispered, of girls who vanished or returned home, bruised and silent, never the same. The adults warn you with their eyes to stay near the house, but also make it clear that if anything happens, you will be the one at fault. Why were you out so late? Why did you look at him? Why did you go alone? The blame is pre written, the verdict certain. Animals are another kind of hazard. The dogs that roam the street are not pets, but half wild scavengers, hungry and quick to snap at careless hands. The pigs in the yard are unpredictable. The chickens peck your ankles if you step too close. Even the family cow, usually docile, has her bad days. Hooves and horns, a sudden kick. You have scars to prove it. And then there are the creatures you cannot see, fleas in the bedding, rats in the cellar, lice in your hair. Each one a tiny, gnawing reminder that nothing is ever truly safe. Beyond the village, the woods loom, deep and tangled, a place of stories and fears. The boys boast of hunting rabbits or finding hidden streams, but you are warned that the forest holds more than just animals. There are bandits, desperate men who will rob anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. There are tales of witches, of curses, of spirits that lure girls into the dark, never to return. True or not, these stories keep you near the edge of the trees, glancing over your shoulder when you gather firewood or mushrooms. You have no reason to doubt that evil can hide anywhere. Work itself is risky. The knife slips while chopping turnips. The cauldron spills scalding water on your arm. The loom pinches your fingers. The fire leaps too high. There is no doctor to fix a broken bone, no medicine for a deep cut, just rags and prayers and the hope you will heal. You have seen what happens when someone does not. Infection, fever, the slow fading away that ends in a hurried burial and another name spoken in the churchyard. But the worst dangers are the ones that come from people. Men are to be feared, but so are women with secrets, neighbors with grudges, strangers with questions. Gossip can wound deeper than a blade, ruin you quicker than any disease. You have seen girls ruined by a single lie, their reputations shredded, their families forced to send them away. Once there was a girl who was found with a ribbon not her own. No one asked how she got it, only what she must have done. She was gone before the next Sunday, her place at church empty, her name spoken only in whispers. Home is not always a refuge. Your father's moods are weather, sometimes clear, sometimes stormy, always unpredictable. When he is angry, the house shrinks. Everyone moves quieter, speaks softer, tries not to draw his eye. Your mother's hands are quick with work, but they can be quick with punishment too. You learn to read the warning signs, the furrow in her brow, the way she slams a pot or snaps at a younger sibling. You know how to disappear when things turn sour, how to make yourself small and invisible, how to swallow your own hurt before it can be noticed. You also know that sometimes the danger comes from within. Fear and shame are constant companions. The fear of making a mistake, of drawing the wrong attention, of losing your only value. The shame of wishing for something more, of feeling anger or envy, or even simple curiosity. You have learned to hide your feelings, to mask your fears with a blank face and busy hands. But inside, you tremble at the thought of being the next cautionary tale. Festivals and feast days should be a break from the usual threats, but they only bring new risks. Crowds of strangers, drunken laughter, hands that linger too long, eyes that wander where they should not. You stick close to your mother, avoid the corners, accept that even a smile can be misread. The world is full of dangers disguised as fun. Sometimes, late at night, you wonder if the boys feel the same fear. You doubt it. They roam freely, daring each other to climb trees or sneak into the woods after dark. You watch them and wonder what it must be like to move through the world without always glancing behind. But you know that the rules are different for you and the consequences more lasting. Your only real defense is caution, constant, exhausting, endless caution. You memorize the safe routes, keep your head down, say little, do nothing that might make you a target. You move quietly, listen more than you speak, avoid risks even when it means missing out. Freedom, you have learned, is a luxury paid for in safety, and safety is never guaranteed. You survive day by day, not because the world is safe, but because you have become an expert in danger. You sense it in the shifting tone of a voice, in the silence after a door slams, in the way the chickens scatter at a sudden movement. Danger is everywhere, and you are always, always watching for it. And so you live, alert and wary, your whole life shaped by the hazards you dodge and the ones you cannot. It is not bravery, it is what survival demands. You are told that everything you do, every chore, every careful word, every modest step, is for a single purpose: to prepare you for marriage. It is the horizon you are taught to watch for, the only escape from your father's house, the finish line, and the beginning of all your real troubles. And so you wait in a kind of living limbo, neither child nor wife, your life on hold as the grown ups bargain over your future. The waiting is not passive, though it might look that way from the outside. Your days are filled with silent rehearsals: how to walk without stumbling, how to smile just enough but never too much, how to answer questions with yes or no, and nothing that sounds like an opinion. You listen to your mother's warnings about how a single wrong word can ruin your prospects, about the importance of keeping your hands busy and your eyes low. Do not look too eager. Do not look too proud. Do not look too sad. Do not look. It is a delicate balancing act, and you are always afraid of falling. Around you, the village is a stage for this waiting game. Other girls whisper about suitors, compare stories about older sisters sent away to good houses or not so good ones. Some brag about new ribbons or sly glances from the miller's boy. Others try to pretend they do not care. Everyone is watching everyone else. A rumor that a girl has a secret admirer can be a blessing or a curse, depending on how the story is told. Your own family is part of the process. Your father worries over dowries and alliances, muttering about land and cattle, as if you are not sitting 2 feet away, as if your future is just another number in his calculations. Your mother makes you practice your stitches until your fingers bleed, reminds you how to make a decent broth, corrects the way you pour water so you will not embarrass yourself in someone else's kitchen. Your brothers tease you about potential husbands, their jokes more cruel than funny. You learn to smile along, though your jaw aches with the effort. Time moves strangely in this waiting period. Each day is a repetition of the last, a wheel turning without progress. You know girls who have waited for years, their faces growing more anxious as the seasons change and the prospects narrow. There is a special kind of dread in being left too long, no longer the fresh faced girl, not yet the settled wife, but a body that is beginning to be considered too old. A face that starts to draw pity or impatience instead of interest. Yet being chosen too soon is no better. You have seen it. A girl barely grown, packed off to a neighboring village, crying quietly into her apron as her mother whispers that she is lucky, that she will learn to love her husband, that her duty is to her family now. The village says a quick goodbye, and then she is gone, her place at church filled by a younger sister or cousin. Her absence lingers in the air for a few weeks, then fades, replaced by new gossip. Your own future is a source of constant speculation, never by you, but always about you. You catch fragments of conversation. She would make a good wife for the baker's son if only her father could offer a bit more. Or, that one is quiet. She will keep a house well. Sometimes the words are kinder, sometimes not. Rarely do they seem to include what you want or fear. You grow used to being discussed as if you are not in the room. The rare times you are asked your opinion, it is more a formality than a real question. What do you think of the miller's John? Someone might ask, and you answer with what you are supposed to say. He is hard working. He is kind. You do not mention that his smile makes your skin crawl, or that you have heard stories about his temper. Your feelings are not the point. The match is everything. You watch, day by day, as your world shrinks to a narrow focus. Will this be the day someone comes to make an offer? Will your father accept, or will he hold out for something better? Will you be sent far away to a place where no one knows your face, or married off nearby, so you must live under the eyes of those who watched you grow up? The uncertainty gnaws at you, turning ordinary chores into moments of dread. Each visitor is a possible turning point. Each family gathering is a chance for news, good or bad. In the meantime, you keep yourself useful because an idle girl is a suspicious girl. You become an expert in patience, in hiding your nerves, in biting your tongue. You learn to read the moods of your parents, to anticipate their worries, to step out of the way when tensions rise. Your life is a performance, every day another act of preparation for a future you did not choose. Sometimes, late at night, you allow yourself a moment of hope that your husband will be gentle, that his house will be warm, that you will have a little room of your own to breathe and be something more than a commodity. But hope is dangerous. You know better than to expect kindness or comfort. The girls who expect too much are the ones who suffer most. Better to wait without hope, to accept what comes as fate, to tell yourself that survival is enough. And so you wait in the liminal space between girlhood and the rest of your life, wondering if the next sunrise will change everything or nothing at all. You wait because you must, because everyone is waiting, because there is no other path for you. In this world, waiting is work, and endurance is your only reward. The villagers speak of feast days as if they are a gift, a bright spot in the gray tapestry of your life. They talk about celebration, about relief from the daily grind, about food and laughter and dancing in the square. But you have lived through enough of these festivals to know that for you, and for every girl in your position, a feast day is just a regular day wrapped in extra chores, with new ways to be judged and new opportunities to fail. Preparation begins well before sunrise. The men might snore a little longer, but you and your mother are up in the blue-black dark, already moving. There are fires to stoke higher and hotter than usual, bread to bake in double or triple batches, and meats to roast if the family can afford them, which is rare. More often, it is some poor chicken's unlucky day, or perhaps a rabbit if your brothers manage to catch one. You pluck feathers until your fingers are raw, skin your knuckles on carrots, and hope the blood from the chicken washes out of your dress before the guests arrive. Everything must be cleaner than clean. The table is scrubbed with sand, the rushes on the floor changed, the jugs and mugs inspected for chips and cracks. If you are unlucky, you find a mouse has gotten into the flour bin, and now there is another chore, sifting, rescuing, remeasuring. Your mother directs everything with the desperation of a general who knows the battle is lost, but must fight anyway. Each task is another chance to disappoint, another detail to forget. There is no room for error. Every slip will be noticed by the sharpest tongues in the village. As the sun rises, The smells of roasting and baking spread through the house and out into the lane. You would think that the work is nearly done, but it is only beginning. The guests arrive, relatives with opinions, neighbors with sharp eyes, the priest with his gentle reminders about piety and gratitude. The men sit first, as always, their voices booming, their jokes loud and careless. The women arrange themselves in the background, hands busy, smiles fixed, children tucked under their arms or shooed to the edges. You are everywhere and nowhere at once, serving bread, pouring weak ale, sweeping crumbs that fall the moment you turn your back. You listen for your name, always ready to appear with a clean cup, a refill, a cloth to wipe a spill. If a child cries, it is your job to soothe them. If an elder frowns at the stew, you apologize and fetch another ladle. Your body aches with the effort of being invisible and indispensable at the same time. Food is everywhere, but you taste little. You nibble at a crust here, sip a spoonful of broth there, always on your feet, always moving. When the feast is over and the men have retired to the hearth to talk politics or crops, the real work returns. Clearing plates, scrubbing pots blackened from hours over the fire, scraping scraps into buckets for the pigs and chickens. Sometimes, when the moon is high, you steal a cold bit of meat from the leftovers, savoring the taste as if it were a sin. There is music, of course, and laughter. Someone brings out a battered fiddle. Someone else stamps a foot to keep time. The children dance, wild and shrieking. Sometimes the men demand that the girls dance too, and you are pulled into the center of the room, blushing under the weight of 100 eyes. You dance because you must, smiling because to do otherwise would draw questions. Is she sick? Is she ungrateful? Is she proud? And any answer is trouble. Feast days are a showcase of virtue. Every guest is watching, every mother is judging, every father is calculating the value of every daughter on display. It is the worst kind of market, one where the wares must look happy to be sold. You know that this day is as much about arranging matches and alliances as it is about celebrating a saint or a harvest. Each laugh, each movement, each word is remembered. You carry yourself carefully, not daring to eat too quickly, not daring to speak out of turn, not daring to look too interested in any boy or man. If you are lucky, the worst that happens is a sore back and a handful of new blisters. If you are unlucky, a careless word, a dropped plate, or a frown in the wrong moment will haunt you for weeks, turning into gossip that sticks like mud. The feast day, so full of promise for some, is just another way to make or break your already precarious reputation. When the last guest has gone, the house is a ruin. The men snore in the corner, the children collapse where they stood, and your mother surveys the wreckage with a sigh. You are left with the cleaning, the sorting, the quiet scraping of plates and stacking of bowls, the silent work of restoring order. Only when every ember has died, every surface wiped, every bit of mess tucked away for tomorrow, do you get to sleep, if you are lucky, on a patch of straw that has not been trampled flat. Sometimes, in the quiet after, you wonder if anyone else feels as tired as you do. You wonder if there will ever be a feast day where you can sit, eat, and laugh with nothing to do, nothing to fear. But you know the answer. In your world, rest is for other people, for another life. So you close your eyes and drift to sleep, the echoes of laughter and music tangled with the aches in your hands and the certainty that tomorrow will be just as hard, just as dirty, and just as thankless as every day before. The world does not encourage hope, but it is hard to live without some flicker of it, even if you must keep it hidden deep inside. You do not dare to speak your wishes aloud. Hope, after all, is dangerous. It is a luxury for those with choices, not for a girl whose life is counted out in chores and caution, in silent obedience and wary glances. Still, hope finds you in quiet moments, fragile, improbable, impossible to kill completely. Sometimes hope arrives disguised as curiosity, the secret question that floats up in your mind. What if? What if your suitor is not cruel? What if your marriage means an easier life? What if your children, when they come, will not have to work quite so hard or go quite as hungry? It is not that you truly believe these things will happen, but thinking them makes the days a little lighter. You carry these secret hopes like a hidden talisman, something to touch when the world feels too heavy. You have seen hope in others, girls who talk of joining a convent, dreaming of a clean stone cell and the quiet dignity of prayer, a world where you are not bought or bartered but chosen by God, where you can read and sing and be alone with your thoughts. Your mother scoffs at the idea, says convents are for rich girls or those with nothing left to lose. But sometimes you imagine yourself behind those walls, wrapped in silence, a small spark of peace burning in the darkness. There is hope, too, in the rhythm of the seasons. When winter is at its deepest, you tell yourself that spring will come, that the world will thaw, that there will be a morning when you wake and the air is sweet and full of bird song instead of bitter with frost and the smell of last night's fire. In the hardest moments, when the well runs dry, when sickness circles the house, when you feel so tired you think you might never stand up again, you look for tiny miracles, a hen's egg found in the grass, a handful of blackberries on the bramble, the sudden laughter of a child that reminds you not everything is grim. Sometimes, hope is not even about better things for yourself, but for the next generation. You watch your younger sister as she learns to sew, makes the same mistakes you made, and you wish for her a husband who is gentle, a home where the shouting is rare, a future with fewer bruises and less hunger. You know you may never escape your lot, but maybe, just maybe, she will. Maybe you will help her get there by teaching her the rules, by shielding her when you can, by being the invisible wall between her and the worst the world can offer. There are other kinds of hope, more secret still, a wild, quiet dream that you will somehow catch the eye of someone kind, or clever, or simply not cruel, that he will see you not as property, but as a person, though you know, even as you imagine it, that this is not how things are done, and wishing for it is foolish at best, sinful at worst. Still, in the long hours of repetitive work, your mind slips away from the present, drifts into stories you have pieced together from overheard tales and fragments of gossip. In your private imagination, you are not just the obedient daughter, the commodity for sale. You are the heroine, the one who escapes, or triumphs, or is at least remembered for something more than her dowry or her silence. The church offers its own version of hope, but it is a distant, austere kind. You are told to look for miracles, to pray for intercession, to believe that the saints or the Virgin herself might reach down and change your life. There are tales of girls rescued from cruel fathers, of women who saw visions and were rewarded with good husbands or sudden fortune. You try to believe, lighting a candle when you can, muttering prayers in the darkness. But miracles are rare, and your experience tells you that the world changes slowly, if at all, and usually not in your favor. You watch for signs, as everyone does. A crow at the window, a rainbow after the rain, a flower blooming where none should grow. You gather these small wonders, store them up as proof that the world is not wholly indifferent to your existence. But most days, you know that miracles, if they come, will be quiet and small, an extra mouthful of food, a day without pain, a moment of laughter that lingers longer than the sorrow that came before. Sometimes you hope for change without even knowing what change might look like. You wish for something you cannot name, a crack in the endless routine, a sign that the world is not fixed in place forever. This is the most dangerous kind of hope because it stirs restlessness, makes you notice the bars of your cage. You remind yourself that wishing is for children and fools, but you cannot help it. Hope grows in darkness, like a stubborn weed. You do not share your hopes, not with your mother, not with your sisters, not with your friends. It is safer that way. Hope is a secret language, spoken only in silence, only in the privacy of your own mind. You have seen what happens when hope is dashed, when a girl dares to believe too much. Disappointment is its own kind of injury, and there is never time to heal. Still, hope lingers, even in a life of drudgery and dirt. Even in a world where your worth is measured by what you can endure, hope survives. It might be foolish, it might be dangerous, but it is also necessary. Without hope, the days would be nothing but gray sameness, an endless circle of pain and obedience. With hope, however faint, there is always a reason to keep going. So you tuck your wishes away and get up for another day, another round of chores and caution and small secret prayers. You survive on hope as much as on bread or water, and you guard it more fiercely than anything else you own. The day ends as it began, with the slow extinguishing of the light, with the weight of fatigue in your bones, and with a sense that nothing essential has changed, nor ever will. You lie down on your pallet of straw, surrounded by the familiar smells of damp earth, sweat, and the faintest hint of last night's fire. The cold presses against your skin even beneath layers of patched blankets and borrowed shawls. Around you, your family breathes in the darkness, restless and tired. Somewhere in the house, a child coughs, and you hear your mother's whispered prayers, half hoping they will work this time. You stare up at the rough-hewn beams, tracing the knots and cracks you know by heart. In this dim quiet, the world shrinks to your own heartbeat, the rise and fall of your chest, the echo of every chore and scolding and small act of defiance you dared today. The days and nights blur together, and you lose track of how long it has been since you last felt something like true happiness or even satisfaction. Survival is your only achievement, and it is not one you can afford to celebrate. Tomorrow, will be just the same. Another round of cold water at dawn, another set of hands thrust into soapy or icy buckets, another meal of bread that is hard or soup that is thin, another day spent avoiding danger, swallowing anger, measuring each word and step. You will carry water, mend clothes, patch wounds, bury hopes, and endure punishments that arrive without warning. You will say your prayers, not because you believe miracles will come, but because to stop praying would be to admit that no one is listening. Your dreams, when they come, are rarely sweet. Sometimes you find yourself running, sometimes falling, sometimes endlessly peeling onions or searching for something you never find. On rare nights, a dream of laughter or warmth or escape slips in, but it always fades with the sunrise, replaced by the relentless demands of your role. If you cry, you do it quietly, so as not to wake anyone, so as not to bring more trouble down on your own head. Grief, like hope, is a private thing. The world outside it changes with the seasons, but the cycles inside your house are as fixed as the turning of the wheel. Children grow up, women grow old, men get harder or more silent, and still the work goes on. If you are lucky, you will marry and begin the cycle again in someone else's house. If you are luckier still, you will survive childbirth, live to see your own children reach adulthood, and find a way to teach them the small, bitter lessons you have learned. Keep quiet, keep working, keep hoping, keep surviving. Sometimes, late at night, you allow yourself the smallest act of rebellion, a silent promise that you will not let the world break you completely. You will keep some secret bit of yourself alive, no matter how hard life tries to grind it down. It is not much. It is not the revolution the priests warn against or the stories tell about. It is quieter, slower, more persistent. Endurance is your weapon, irony, your shield. Small joys, half stolen, half imagined, are your victories. You think for a moment of how many lives are lived like yours, how many girls lie awake across the land, cataloging their failures and fears, dreaming of a different world. You wonder if any of them ever get to be more than what is expected of them, if any ever slip free of the invisible chains that bind them to kitchen and hearth, to silence and obedience. The answer, if there is one, is far away. But you are not alone in your struggle, even if you feel so most of the time. Your story is not written in books or sung in songs. There are no monuments to girls like you, no great loves, no heroic deeds, no battles won, but there is survival. There is the stubbornness to continue day after day when the world would have you disappear. There is the dignity in enduring, in scraping together moments of peace, in loving your siblings, in comforting your mother. in being kind even when the world is not. The cold grows deeper as the night drags on. Your eyes grow heavy. You think one last time of all you have endured, the hunger, the fear, the endless sameness of days. It is not a happy life. It is not a fair life. It is simply the life you have. You draw your thin blanket higher, curl in on yourself, and let the darkness take you. Tomorrow, you will wake up and do it all again. Because in the end, that is all there is. Not victory, not escape, but survival, enduring what must be endured, finding small moments of meaning in the long gray stretches of hardship. You are a hired virgin in the medieval world. Your life is cold, hard, thankless, and unseen by history, but it is, against all odds, a life. And so you sleep, if not in peace, then at least in exhaustion, while the world outside remains just as dark, just as dangerous, just as indifferent as it was when you woke.